Welcome to the 3Haunted podcast, where we bring you all things horror, supernatural, folklore, mythology, and all things that go bump in the night.
This is your co-host, Ashley Lunar Goddess, Gorilla Girl filmmaker and horror-loving cinephile.
I'm your co-host, John Thomas, paranormal investigator, super smartass, and film lover extraordinaire.
What's up, ghouls, gals, and all of our bewitching pals? In today's episode, we'll be discussing the modern-day witch as well as collective energy. What does modern-day witchcraft look like? What is collective energy and how can it be used? Join us and our special guest as we dive in to discuss this enchanting world.
But first, a word from our network sponsor.
Are you looking for more awesome podcasts? Head on over to withoutyourhead.com for access to the Without Your Head podcast network, where you'll find a variety of podcasts sure to keep you entertained and coming back for more. All right, John, bring us back.
Bringing us back. Welcome back, everybody. Like Ashley said, we have a very special guest with us today. Her name is Eline. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Hi. Thank you for having me.
Hello, Eline. Welcome. We're so excited to have you here. And you're coming in all the way from Belgium, right?
Yes, I
Nice
am.
and early for you, yes.
I know. That is amazing. Thank you so much for being willing to wake up super early to do this podcast with us.
Thank you for going super late to do it with me.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've been very excited to have you on and to discuss all of the things that we talked about, because you have said quite a few things and I'm like, I want to know so much more. One of the things you had mentioned is that you consider yourself a modern day witch, correct?
Yes, correct.
So what does that mean? What does that mean to you? Because I know it's not just one thing. Like, every person that identifies probably as a modern day witch doesn't necessarily believe, right, or practice the same way. So for you, what does that look like?
Well, for me, that definitely looks like having my spiritual practice, my witchcraft, be a part of my life, if not my everyday life. But also my business. I use seasonal energy to run my business just as much as I use it to live my life. So that's kind of in short what it means for me to be a modern day witch. And I'm also planning on teaching other women, other witches or men or people to really use that seasonal energy in their businesses as well. I think it's really such a great way to tap into something bigger and use that to infuse the way that you run your business or your work life if you don't have your own business. So
when you say using the seasonal energies to help guide the business and your personal, does that mean you're using the seasonal energy to structure different rituals, or what? I guess, what does that mean? Using seasonal energy.
Yeah, so for me, it means I really plan offers and launches and periods in the year of being, for example, less active or more active with clients. So really planning everything around the Sabbats and around the moon cycles, and really looking at, okay, so when, for example, now we have in September Mabon coming up, so I'm taking a few days off just to really have a CEO day, sit with myself, have some me time, but also journal on, okay, what is next in my business for the upcoming weeks until the next Shabbats, which will be Halloween or Samhain. So I really use those points in the year to plan not only me time, but also time to sit with my business and to connect to the energy of my business. Because I see my business as an energetic container, as something that also evolves and moves and, just like energy does, right? So I really use those times in the year to connect also with my business, to go in conversation with my business and to visualize and meditate and kind of really go into the energy of my business to see, okay, what do you need? What are the things that maybe I have neglected? What are the things that maybe we can work on together? And so I really use the wheel of the year and those really important points in the year, those Sabbats, to really kind of tune in more than I do already on the daily, like really more intentionally. And I also build rituals around that for sure, not just for my personal life, but also for my business. Also because I believe that everything is connected, everything is intertwined, so I don't see my business and my life as something separate. I just take myself with me wherever I go. So the rituals that I have for my personal life, quote unquote personal life, I also have as much for my business.
I mean, that makes sense that it's all intertwined. I think sometimes we separate things so much that it ends up becoming really hard to balance it, right? And so the idea of finding that balance is actually reconnecting it all together. We see that with the body just alone. When people end up feeling or starting to manifest like physical kind of disease, a lot of what it is they're not aligned. And so just trying to find that alignment to kind of really get everything, all the energy flowing in that healthy manner, I guess. If that made any sense, I'm kind of sound like, I feel like I'm rambling.
No, it totally makes sense. And it's the same for your business, right? As much as like, if you want your business to be healthy, it's also about having everything aligned and having that energy flow. And like, I just know, for example, summertime is a time where, we really bloom. Nature blooms as well. It's really easy. You just kind of look at nature, what nature is doing, what nature needs, and we are part of nature. So we are kind of following that flow, that seasonal energy. That's what I mean with that seasonal energy. And so really in summer, we're blooming and we're out and about and we're doing so much. And then when kind of fall starts to roll around, you start to kind of really turn a little bit more inward, and it's time for harvest, right? It's harvest season. So it's really time to receive your manifestations and time to sit with them. And then when winter rolls around, it's really time to kind of almost hibernate, right? Because that's what winter does. Everything is kind of dying. It needs to kind of die to be able to renew. And so then it's really a good time for dreaming, resting, really doing, that's what I do more. Like I take more time off. Last winter, I took almost all winter off. I think I took almost 3 months off or something, just to really, because I needed it. I really needed to turn inward, and I needed that time to reconnect to myself, to my life, to every part of my life, and to really visualize what it was that I wanted for the year to come. And then when spring rolls around, this is where you plant your seeds. This is where you set your intentions. And this is really where you start looking at, okay, what is it that I want to do for the coming year, the coming season? And then using that moon energy, the moon cycles in between, really helps you to have like these smaller focal points in your month to really kind of do the same thing, like kind of use the same cycle, but it's just on a smaller level than when you do it with the seasons and with a whole year, if that makes sense.
Yes. So it's just learning to adapt what you're doing to kind of, well, I shouldn't say model nature because we are part of nature. So to reintegrate in with nature to follow that wheel of the year. So for all of these really big, awesome concepts that you're talking about, where do you learn about this? Like, where did you learn about this and how to guide your rituals and your practices? Or is this something you just intuitively kind of developed?
It's definitely both. So I intuitively developed it mostly because witchcraft came into my life when I was 8. I grew up in a Catholic situation, I want to say. My mother wasn't necessarily very much of a believer, but her side of the family very much is. And I think my mother was always the rebel in the family and like, oh no, I'm not going to church and I don't even know if I believe in God or in the system that is the church or whatever. So I definitely picked something up from her, obviously, by questioning that. However, I did go to a Catholic school. For sure, questioning all of that made me kind of look for answers in other systems almost, because I was a kid and systems were all I knew. And paired with growing up in an abusive home, being a victim of domestic violence made me question, like, if I believe in this God that is presented to me in the way that it is presented to me, then it means that I am a bad person and I'm being punished. And I don't want to believe that. I don't think that is why religion or belief systems or life's philosophies should be around, to make you believe that you're a bad person. So there must be something else. So I started reading books, and witchcraft was the first thing that popped out for me. And then later on in life, Eastern philosophies, which is also something that I then went on to study in university. But it really came to me when I was 8, and I just really wanted to believe that there was something bigger than me that was, or that is, gentle and loving and, helps you grow and evolve as a person with integrity, right? And then that kind of evolved into me having a mentor. So when I was 19, I met online a witch who lives in the Netherlands. And so I went to visit her. It was such a long journey. It was like a 6-hour train ride, I think it was. And then I had to take a bus into this really small town. And there wasn't even a bus stop like near her house, but everybody in that town knew her as the witch of the town. So they just the bus driver, I remember, asked everybody on the bus, "Hey, are we okay if we drop this girl off at Margarita's place?" And everybody was like, "Yeah, sure, drop her off." And it was like a long winded road, like off road, and they dropped me off there. It was really funny. And so, yeah, that's the first time I met my mentor, Margarita. And I worked with her for a little bit during that first year, not a lot. And then 20 years later, which is now 8 years ago, I want to say, or 9 years ago, I just got in touch with her again because I really went through a really rough period in my life, and I had lost my practice a little bit. I had stopped practicing witchcraft, and then she helped me kind of get back on track. So that's really I'm 38 now, so it's like a long story. It started 30 years ago, but that's kind of how it came into my life. And yeah, I hope that makes sense, because I feel like I'm going different places.
No, it makes sense. It makes absolute sense. So it seems like you said, it was a mixture of things that you had, which makes sense. Answers aren't always simple, right? Especially with something so big as finding a very integral part of yourself. So that's really cool. Now that you are in a position where you are practicing consistently, and you've got how you're integrating it in with also business and guiding people, are you then also a mentor to individuals that are trying to figure out how to, or is it more of the business aspect where you're guiding people as a business?
Well, actually, I started to mentor myself not so long ago, and I'm still in the process of opening that up to people, actually. So earlier this year, I decided I'm ready to mentor people in this way of life. I have so much knowledge. I've been practicing this for, 30 years now, I want to say, on and off. And because I was integrating it so much into my business and it was working so much, at the start, I was thinking, oh yeah, I want to help women with that. But obviously with that also comes just general mentoring. It's not just about the business. As I said earlier, it's all intertwined. Everything is connected. So I do feel, for the first time in my life, super comfortable with helping other women build their own daily spiritual practice and use seasonal energy to just live their most abundant life, whether that's in your work, in your day-to-day life, in your business, in your relationship, whichever relationship that's important to you, because we all have different relationships to different things and different people in our lives, right? Like food, body, animals, nature, family members, partners, colleagues, coworkers, whatever that looks like. So yeah, I consider myself a mentor now in that practice for the first time in my life. But it's something very recent. It just started.
You mentioned you integrate collective energy work, right? Is it with music?
Yes. So I work as a holistic life coach with people who are predominantly active in nightlife. So DJs, music producers, but also people behind the scenes, artist managers. I also have other people in other genres, like other genres than electronic music, but it's mostly electronic music. That's kind of where I started to learn to tap into collective energy, because I first and foremost started my business, the Unicorn Mothership, to champion electronic music wellness, because I saw that there was a need within that industry for learning to prioritize your wellness and mental well-being so that you can actually have sustainable success in a sector that is highly competitive, that is fast-paced, that is ever-changing. And so for me, it was really very much about not just helping individuals, but also helping to reshape the electronic music community and electronic music culture into something more healthy and more inclusive and more positive for everybody who wants to build a life around their passion for electronic music. So that's really where I kind of started to tap into collective energy. And then from there, because that's very niche, from there I kind of branched out into a bigger collective, I want to say. I now also have, I'm part of a spiritual mastermind. I have been for 2 years. And so through the support of my spiritual running buddies, I call them, I've also learned to tap into the collective energy of the world, or the worlds, if you believe that. I believe that. Of past lives, of, other universes.
So when we talk about, when you say collective energy, when we talk about like the nightlife and using the collective energy there, are we talking about like the collective energy within a nightclub, or are we talking much bigger, pulling from a collective energy source that's, like you said, beyond that, worlds or universes?
So within nightlife, what I'm definitely talking about is just the community, like the people that are considering themselves part of the nightlife community. So that's the people making the music, the people performing the music, the people running the clubs, the promoters, the people, setting up the parties, the light people, the sound people, taxi drivers, people behind the bar, like really that kind of little ecosystem almost, right? So that's what I'm talking about. Everybody who considers themselves part of that nighttime economy, even prostitutes, even, literally anybody you can think of that is part of the nights, and that really helps to fuel that nighttime economy.
How do you tap into that specific energy, or how do they?
For me personally, it's through my network of people. I have a vast network internationally of people who are somehow linked to that community. So for me, it's really connecting with them. It's collaborating. It's, getting together. It's working on projects together that will help elevate the experience of everybody in the nighttime economy. In 2020, I was part of a research into the mental health of electronic artists that was run by the University of Amsterdam and the University of Brussels here in Belgium. And then we wrote a paper which was published in the Journal of Psychology of Music. And that was really meant to help expose a few of the vulnerabilities and a few of the issues within the mental health of electronic music artists. So for me, that's really tapping into the collective, tapping into the community, creating something, co-creating something that can actually help put more information out there, raise the awareness of the community around this topic, and help them better their lives. However, I do want to say that with the dance music community, at the heart of that community is the dance floor. That's where everything happens. That's where the music is discovered. That's where the music is shared. That's where the communal experience of almost that tribal experience of experiencing that music, that escapism, that being able to just be free and feel free and dance and get out there. You know, at the heart of dance music is finding your identity. It's really about experimenting. It's about having a space where you can go to and just find yourself, right? And I don't know why I went there, but that kind of just came out.
So when you're saying collective energy work, it's not so much like using this energy that's manifesting somewhere like metaphysically. It's more so people working collectively with a singular or sometimes multi-leveled goal in mind to help better the overall community.
Yeah, it's more about consent. It's more about agreeing to come together and to work on something together but really letting the energy lead. I'm not just going to work with just anybody. It has to really feel good. It has to feel aligned. And so your energy really leads the way and guides you towards the people that you are meant to be in communion with and do something together with for the greater good. That's kind of how I see tapping into that energy.
Yeah, that makes sense. When everybody is focused on the same kind of visual outcome, that can be a pretty powerful manifestation tool.
Yeah, or even feeling outcome, right? Like how do we want this to feel for everybody? How do we want everybody to feel in this, right?
I thought it was really beautiful how you were describing the experience on the dance floor. Like that is where the music gets discovered. That's where the people feel they're most free. And I can completely like resonate with that.
Right. I know I got some really cool visuals when you were describing that, and it was just cool. I don't dance either. I can't dance for nothing. So I do enjoy watching people on the dance floor, though. I know that sounds a little weird, but I like to see how free they feel and how, their movements and everything else is just amazing to watch, especially if they're really good. Not, anybody's really good compared to myself. So yeah.
I don't even think you have to be good though. When a person's feeling it, like they like you can tell when they lock into whatever that connection of that like vibrating it's you feel it. It ripples out, it waves out, and you feel it.
Well, that's the thing with, this culture too. As I said, like it comes from, expressing yourself in ways that just whatever it comes through. And it's about that acceptance. It's about that inclusivity. It's not about judging like, oh my God, you look like so-and-so, or like, oh, what are you doing? No, it's really all about like experimentation, be free, do whatever, in the way you dress, in the way you move, in the way you speak, in the way whatever, And this is also, when we're talking about the manifestation process, embodiment. Who do you want to be? If you want to go to that next level, the fastest way to it is through embodying it. Like, who do you want to be? And movement and dance really helps you to let your body lead and to let your body tell you. There is so much wisdom in your body, to let your body tell you where to go to. And one of the best ways to figure that out, for me, definitely is on the dance floor, is to just like whatever, as you just described, not thinking about it, not caring what anybody's going to think, just let the music move you and let your body lead the way. And through that, you will really uncover some wisdom, some insights, that you need. I even do it at home as well. I'll put on some music and just kind of see where my body will take me. If I'm ever stuck in something, to get unstuck is to move the energy someplace else. And then I'll just put on some music and just move it out,
Well, and sometimes I do think there is like a natural music out there anyways, right? Like the harmonics. And it's just like people don't even realize when they key into it because it's just not something you audibly hear, right? But I've noticed it being at places, especially when there's like large groups of people, how I will see like one person start like just randomly dancing a little, and it's like, what there's no music. What are they hearing? And then you see someone else is doing it like down the way. And then eventually you see like 4 or 5 people, but they don't necessarily see each other, and they're just kind of like bopping their heads or swaying side to side. It's like they're all tuned into the same thing. No idea what it is, but they're feeling it.
Yeah. Yeah, totally, for sure. And it's the same with laughter when one person starts to laugh.
Yes.
We have so many videos on YouTube or whatever of people like one person laughing, and then there's always a trailblazer. You know what you described with dancing, there's always a trailblazer. And then with laughter, it's the same thing. It's also that frequency that you suddenly feel, and you're like, oh my God, I can't help but laugh. And then other people feel the same way. And before you know it, it's like this laugh fest, which can be a little creepy, but still.
And yawning.
Oh, yes.
Yawning is the same thing.
Yeah.
So you had also mentioned when we talked before about shadow work. And I've heard that term used, but I'm not really sure what it means. And I'm always afraid to Google things because I feel like it's so much. It's information overload. So I'd rather just ask someone who's like, yeah, I've worked with shadow work. Cool. What is that?
So I got into shadow work because of witchcraft. It is part of, going through your journey as a witch is to do shadow work. And it really means to look at those parts of yourself that maybe you don't like, that maybe you're afraid of, that maybe you would rather not look at because you're ashamed of it or you feel guilty about certain parts of yourself. And for me personally, getting into shadow work, doing shadow work really has meant in a safe way. And I did that through ritual, casting a circle, making sure I have a safe space around me so that no other energies can suddenly come in and interfere with the process. So it's very important, especially with shadow work, to create a safe space for yourself. I do it through ritual, but you can do it through other ways as well if you want to. And really inviting those parts of yourself in. And you can take it like one part at a time. You don't have to do it like all at the same time because that's just too overwhelming. But this is also where seasonal energy, the wheel of the year, the Sabbats can help. There's always a certain theme attached to each Sabbat. So you can actually just do this at Sabbats and just kind of choose the theme that's, linked to that specific holiday. But really, it is looking at those parts of yourself that you have been hiding, the parts, for example, that you don't like to talk to other people about. If you're trying to figure out like, what are those parts of me? Just think about the parts of yourself that you don't like to talk about with other people, that you don't like to expose, that you prefer to keep hidden in the shadows, right? And then just for me, it's always been about asking I call them my spirit team. It's my team of light beings that I work with that have been with me this lifetime and other lifetimes. I have discovered only very recently. And I just ask them to support me, to protect me, to help me through this work. And usually what I do is I go inward through meditation. I kind of see what comes up and I journal. I use journaling prompts to really uncover what it is that needs to come out. Journaling prompts and also my tarot cards. I will draw cards and then depending on the card that I have, I will journal on it. And, some journaling prompts could be very simple things like what parts of me have I been hiding and why? And what are these parts trying to tell me? And I go into conversation with it like I would with a person. I give them the floor. I pass them the mic. And I'm like, here, you have space to talk now. Talk, like, tell me whatever it is that you want me to know. A very specific example could be, for example, when we're talking about wealth and money, the shadow side is scarcity. So you cannot build wealth and riches when you're not willing to look at what your scarcity is trying to tell you. And scarcity shows up in every way. But rather than trying to push it away, you can go into conversation with it. For example, if you catch yourself saying, oh no, I don't have enough money for that, that's your scarcity showing up. What is your scarcity trying to tell you? You know, maybe there's some kind of fear behind that you didn't realize was there, that's happening on a subconscious, unconscious level, but that is holding you back in the now to move forward into the future. So what is scarcity trying to tell you? Invite it in. Maybe put on some music, dance with it, you know, see what it looks like in your body. You'll probably make smaller movements. You'll probably be more hunched over, probably be smaller, be more contracted. Just kind of see what information is there. What is it trying to tell you? What are you afraid of? What is holding you back from moving into more abundance? And just ask your scarcity. And then when you're done, be like, okay, thank you. We're done now. You can go now. Like, you don't have to run the show. You don't have to stay here. Like, I decide how to run the show. But you have given me some information. You have been my teacher. And now you can go. This is just a very specific example, but you can literally do this with anything.
So are we addressing, when we do shadow work, are we addressing these characteristics of ourselves within the shadows, things that we push down? Are we addressing them to bring them to the surface to eventually, like, get rid of that? Or is it something that's always a part of us and we're just making it a little bit more integrated in so it's not as big of a, I guess, a monster?
It's never about getting rid of that part of you. It's about embracing that part of you. It's about accepting that part of you. It's about being inclusive, right? There is no such thing as bad parts of you or negative emotions. That's just conditioning. We've been taught by this world that there is such thing as bad, negative things and emotions. But actually, nature, the universe, the goddess, the gods, whatever you want to call it, they don't see it that way. It's just a wide spectrum of different frequencies, and some frequencies feel lower and others feel higher, but they are all part of the spectrum. It's like with colors, right? Maybe you won't like the color purple and I will, so you will call it an ugly color and I will call it beautiful. There is actually no such thing. It's just all part of the spectrum, right?
It's just the colors.
Yeah. So it's the same with those shadow parts of you. It's not about getting rid of them. It's about going into conversation with them so that they can be your teachers and so that they will not run the show on autopilot, right? So that you can actually grasp what is going on there and you can work with it so that it doesn't work against you.
So it's bringing it back into the collective, like that balance, kind of like we were talking about before. It's just getting that balance back.
It's like when we would say, oh, we want to get rid of winter because it's too cold and we don't like it. No, it's just we go through it and it goes through us and it teaches us things. And then we go back into the light. It's the same thing with the wheel of the year, right? Nature goes to sleep and then, the sun god comes back out after winter and brings light back. And that's just kind of how it works within ourselves as well. There's just parts of us that go to sleep, that die, that go into the shadows. And we can just invite them in and have a conversation with them and see what they're trying to teach us. And this is really something that's cyclical, right? So there could be times where you're like, oh, I'm just going to use the example of scarcity again. I'm addressing my scarcity. And then when you think you've addressed it, it's coming back. Why? Because you are in relationship with evolution, right? You're constantly evolving. That's your biggest relationship as a human being here on this planet, is being in relationship with evolution. You're constantly growing, you're constantly evolving, you're constantly changing, just like nature, right? And so in different times of your life, it's going to pop back up and it's going to teach you different things. So everything is constantly cyclical within you, within nature. As we said, it's all intertwined. So this is why the wheel of the year and the Shabbats are so supportive, because you can use them to intentionally tune into those things rather than only addressing it when it comes up. So using the wheel of the year can help you to be proactive about it rather than being reactive. And that's why I'm always so adamant about celebrating all of I call them my witchy holidays. And I also tell my fiance, like, okay, today's a witchy holiday. Like, I'm celebrating. If you want to join in, I'm cool. If not, like, no. But like, this is my time. Like, this is my time to intentionally turn inwards and to do the thing that I want to do that's attached to that specific witchy holiday. And, you know, that's really what it means to do your shadow work as well.
Thank you. I've been curious about that.
Okay. So I hope that helps.
It does actually. I know you mentioned that you also work with like the past life regression and stuff like that, or past lives integration. I know with the collective energy. How did you come to, I guess, start experiencing past life?
In a very ugly way,
No.
unfortunately. Yeah. Again, also something that wasn't intentional. It just was something that took over and that happened. And it took me a very, very long time I was really terrorized by my past lives, if I'm being quite honest, if I'm thinking about it now. And it took me a long time to learn to work with those past lives. It took me up until almost 2 years ago when I met my spiritual mastermind people. And they helped me to really work with my past lives. But before that, it was constantly taking over. It was taking over in my dreams. Things were coming out during the day. I would suddenly get super anxious, a lot of anxiety going on. I would see and hear things that were unwanted, that were scaring me. I was definitely seeing a lot of what they call shadow people. I could see them just pass through the rooms in my house. I would constantly have to say, like, go away, you're not invited here. I didn't invite you in. But actually I did, apparently, but it was on a subconscious level. I just didn't realize it. So my current spiritual mentor, she really helped me clear a lot of that. And I'm still in the process of clearing a lot of that, actually. And apparently I also learned that before my soul incarnated in this body on this earth, in this lifetime, I apparently signed a soul contract that I was going to do a lot of karma clearing at this time in my life, but like accelerated, because apparently I felt like, let's just get it all out of the way before I'm 40 so that we can just do the rest of my life in a more peaceful way. Most people do it like throughout their whole lifetime and like in bits and pieces. Apparently I decided I was going to do it fast and furious, which has been pretty horrid. I'm going to say I'm feeling better now, but it's been a rough few years. But having that support to go through that has been super important to me, because I literally felt like, oh my God, I don't think I can hold on to this. Like, I'm going to go lose my mind. Maybe, I don't know. I was scared all the time. I was constantly seeing beings that I didn't want to see. But now, because I've been clearing so much, I have that support system. And because I have such a strong spiritual practice, it's actually easier for me to kind of do it in a more controlled environment. And I can invite it in and I can show it the door. And that can really help me to kind of safely look at those past lives and those parts of me that soul journey, it's actually soul journey, that still kind of needs to be acted out somehow in this life.
Do you mind if I ask, how does a past life or past lives, how does that cause the manifestation of like shadow people and paranormal interactions or experiences? How would a past life or soul contract, I guess, impact that?
So for me, like, this is my experience. I'm speaking for myself. Like, maybe there's people out there who are like, oh my God, she's so full of shit. This is so not true. This is me. Like,
well,
this is my
I
knowledge.
wasn't thinking that. I was just curious. For me, I always try to piece together how it goes because I think about my own life experiences and I'm like, oh shit, is there something in my past life I don't know about causing this? So that's why I'm asking.
It could be. But yeah, so for me personally, it was because apparently in a past life, I discovered I used to be an information scout, a knowledge scout, and I would travel across the universe from planet to planet to gather information and bring it back to my own planet and store it in this like huge information library. It's actually the first time I'm openly talking on a podcast about this. This is quite interesting. Like, really, like, this is usually in my intimate circle things that I talk about, but I've never openly talked about this. So that's interesting.
You feel comfortable?
Yeah, I'm okay with it. Surprisingly,
it's a level up.
It is, right? Like, wow. But so the way that at some point manifested was because I started to see shadow people and fairies, and fairies usually don't look like they look like in the movies. They look pretty scary. But apparently there was something at a subconscious level going on with me that I was struggling with in this life. Like, I was struggling with, like, I know so many things and people don't see me and people don't recognize me. And I was struggling in my business and I felt really frustrated and bitter about the way that things were going in my business. But it was because I wasn't recognizing that part of me. I wasn't giving myself the validation and the recognition of being actually a person who knows a lot. And I am valuable because of it. And it was that kind of part of my soul journey that was coming out, because I used to be an information scout. I used to be a person who knew a lot of things about a lot of things and different cultures and different peoples and different planets and whatever. And I was recognized for it in a past life. I was known for it. I was, famous for it almost. But this really, what this does was, it was bringing out these energetic beings that I was seeing because I needed to see it so much in my face to draw attention to the fact that I was not recognizing myself for being a person who actually has a vast knowledge of a lot of things. And I should be proud of that. And I should be flaunting it, right? Like, I should be like, hey, I'm so fucking awesome. Look at me with all my knowledge, But there was some conditioning on top of that in this life, in this body, that's saying like, oh, you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't brag. That's arrogant, right? And I think those two parts of me were fighting with themselves. Part of me, this information scout part of me, part of my soul, very much so wanted to come out and was the strongest part of that conversation, that I actually started to see things from that life in the form of seeing shadow people pass through, seeing fairies, seeing whatever, right? And it was just really that soul part of me that was trying to say, hey, this is a part of you, like, look at this. And my physical human 3D body and experience just wouldn't listen. So I just started to manifest these energies and see them. And then it made me question, like, what the fuck is going on? Why am I seeing this? And at first I was like, go away. I don't want you here. You're freaky. You scare me. Like, let me sleep. What are you doing here? Like, what do you want? And then I started to talk to my spiritual mentor, and she was like, well, maybe it's trying to tell you something. Have you considered that? I was like, oh, okay. Let me look into that. I'll get back to you. And then we started to uncover this whole unraveling of past lives and things. This is just like a small example, but I hope it makes it tangible to make it.
Yes, it makes sense. I've been there with the, what the fuck is this? Just go away.
Yeah. To a point where, like, I was thinking, am I going into a psychosis? Am I hallucinating? Like, I was starting to question my own mind, because I have gone through a psychosis when I was 19. And this was very different, but still, I was like, just still questioning it,
Yeah.
Pair that with the fact that, again, conditioning, or with the fact that people discard your faith or are like, oh my God, you're so delusional that you're believing in all of these things like other lifetimes.
Yeah, it's a taboo topic, which just baffles me. The same people that are like, God created the earth and there are all these, magical miracle things that happen, but it's weird for me to feel spirits or energies. Like, how does that even make sense?
Or even past lives. So your question in that as well. So, and again, conditioning makes you question yourself until you give yourself permission to fully embrace what you believe in, what you experience. And then things really open up. Especially for me, that's definitely what happened. I suddenly started to have my dragon tribe come through, and like this whole army of other beings that I hadn't known about my whole life, but that I had felt. I started to realize that I could actually go into other dimensions and biolocate and like all these crazy things. And this has only been in the past 2 years. It's been crazy.
What is biolocate?
So that's actually where it's not like astral projection.
Okay.
It's different, but biolocation is really where you're being in two places at the same time and you're like conscious, right? For me, it started to happen involuntary. It started to happen during meditations with my spiritual running buddies. And I would tell them like, oh my God, I was somewhere. And the difference between astral projection and biolocation for me is I can literally feel physically that I'm in two places at the same time, or energetically, I want to say, because when I biolocate, but now I've learned to control it. But for me, it feels like, so I'm laying down on the couch, I'm doing a meditation, and then I fall like literally out of my body and I start to walk around in some other place. With astral projection, it's different. I don't really do astral projection like well, but it's different. It's more like, your mind is somewhere else or something. I don't know. I don't really know that much about astral projection, but biolocation is really crazy because I've been, for example, at the house of a friend of mine and I could like see her parents walk around, and I would test it afterwards with her and ask her questions and be like, hey, were you at home at so-and-so time and your mother was there and your dad was there? And she would be like, yeah. So, and I was still here on the couch, like conscious of the fact that I was on the couch, but I was also there.
So when you biolocate, you can't interact with like wherever you go, like, but like
you can.
Oh, you can, but not the people, right? Or
you can. You can interact.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I've had interactions like the first times I did it, it was involuntary and I would end up in places where I didn't want to end up, but it was involuntary. And the first 5 times it happened, I apparently sneaked up on people, but I didn't want to do that. But suddenly somebody would walk around and would be like, hey! And I would just be, oh my God, what is that? And I would just kind of jump back into this space. And then I talked to my spiritual mentor about it. She was like, oh yeah, you were biolocating. You should probably kind of train that a little bit because otherwise... And also, it feels like the first time it happened, I felt drunk. Like I fell out of my body and I felt like nauseous and I felt like, oh my God, I'm so drunk. Like, what's going on? Where am I? And I had to try and find my feet. But now that I've practiced it a little bit more, I've actually learned to do it in a different form. I'm not doing it in my human form anymore because it's just too unsettling.
What form do you take? Is it more of an energetic form?
Yeah, I think it's more my original soul form, which is my soul. I've learned I'm like my original soul form is a shapeshifter, so I can shapeshift into things. Usually when I biolocate, I feel like I'm more of a dragon or a bird or something. I'm flying around. Like I'm not 100% sure what form it is, but I know that I'm flying around and it's not in a plane. It's like me flying and I'm looking through my eyes, but it's a different type of sight. It's not human sight. Also something I've never shared in public before. Oh my God. This is so awesome.
Yay. I'm glad you feel
Ashley's
comfortable.
Good I was going to say, Ashley's good at asking the questions that, hit. So
Exactly.
I'm curious. It kind of makes you wonder, though, because we see, like, in a lot of the mythology and folklore, the artistic renderings of, like, human type creatures, right? Human hybrids with other, and like different arms and feet and like of creatures. And it makes you wonder if people were actually depicting like soul forms, right? Or things that they had experienced maybe within themselves. So,
yeah. Or even,
or others.
other worldly beings, like other planets, other,
Yeah.
I've always believed in that, but now I believe in it so much more.
It comes from somewhere. And like, I know John knows this too. It's like, I firmly believe that like a lot of our inspiration for our music and our creative expression, it is coming from somewhere much deeper than just like our brain. And as much as people would like to think our imagination is the greatest thing, I do think we do source into something a bit more. And that's where a lot of that comes from. So,
yeah, big believer of that too.
This has been awesome. How do you feel, Joan? Do you have any questions? I know I'm constantly like, pew, 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 question.
No, I don't have any questions. But when she was talking about the shadow work, it hit something with me, so I know I need to work on some of that for myself, and I hope that it actually finds listeners that need to hear all of that as well, and it helps them. So, yeah.
I would probably say when it comes to the shadow work, I'm not even like experiencing this at all, but I've some of the stuff I have seen based on what you told us, it makes so much more sense bringing that, acknowledging those shadow parts of ourselves, bringing it back into the fold and embracing what that can do to help versus I got to get rid of you. And I would, for any listeners too, I would be mindful that there are, when you look at shadow work, there are a lot of people that will guide you to do like banishing rituals for those pieces within yourself that you don't like. And I think that's a little dangerous. I think that it's a part of you for a reason. So to banish it and do those banishing rituals is probably not something that feels right to me, at least.
I wouldn't do that. Yeah.
And
no,
like Eline was saying, it's a part of you and it's there for a reason. So,
I mean, yeah, if you feel like it's an energy from outside of you that's unwanted and that you have not invited in, like definitely, I do that too. I tell it to go away. I'm like, hey, I didn't invite you in, so I don't know what you're doing here, but you can just go back the way you came from. But with the shadow work, it's really much more about the inner parts of you. And I know I gave the example of scarcity versus like building wealth. Another example that also comes to mind for me and that helped me is sobriety. So I'm now 1 year and almost 9 months sober.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And for me, what helped me to actually stick to my sobriety journey, because I had a few tries, was doing the shadow work on alcohol. Like I actually put together like a lot of journaling prompts and have a program on that specifically for people in nightlife, but it can actually work for everybody. But to do a sober month, I really put together the pre-work, which is the shadow work on alcohol. Like for me, it was really looking at why am I using alcohol in this way? What is it that I'm trying to push down? Like what is my relationship with alcohol? Why is my relationship with alcohol like that? And other substances. What is it that I'm trying to fill? What void am I trying to fill that I'm using alcohol and other substances for? So this is how I kind of did all of the shadow work on my relationship with alcohol and cocaine for me personally. And really looked at and uncovered, just to give a few examples, maybe this will help for people to understand what that looks like. For example, I uncovered with cocaine that I liked to do cocaine because it helped me to let out a part of me that I otherwise was having difficulties letting out, which was just really giving myself permission to be all of me and speaking in the way that I'm speaking with you right now, without editing myself, without dimming my lights, right? Without saying like, oh my God, I'm not going to say that. People are going to think I'm crazy. And, I went into my people pleasing and being like, oh no, I'm not going to say that because this person is going to feel uncomfortable. And then I would use cocaine to give myself permission to just be like, blah, 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 and so when I was doing the shadow work, I uncovered that and I realized, well, I don't need cocaine for that. I can do that on my own. I just have to give myself permission. And so this is really something in my sobriety journey that has also helped me, was doing the shadow work. I wanted to give that as well as an example because I think it can also be very tangible for people wondering what that could look like.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Like, thank you for walking us through that. I know that's super personal, so I appreciate you providing that example. That's
yeah, of course.
Because then I have to look at, like, I pause and I'm like, what relationship do I have with things and what am I serving? So I think I have a lot of shadow work ahead of me.
Yeah, we all do. But you know what? Like, we can all just be gentle about it and just pick one theme and just be like, you don't have to. Also, this is something that I also want to share. You don't have to have it all figured out, and you don't have to be completely healed before you can move on to something else. It's just all cyclical, right? And it's going to come back, and it's going to, whatever you're healing now is just going to come back at a different point in time. And I know I've already said this before, because we are in relationship with evolution. So at a different point in your life, you have learned new lessons, you have become a new version of you. So you're going to revisit those things that you have previously healed, and that maybe you just need a new revisiting or a new perspective on those things, right?
A check-in.
Yeah. And so you don't have to be completely healed before you are able to move on to something else. It's not about that. It's just cyclical. It's just something that you're going to look at now. You're going to move forward, and it's probably going to come back later in life. But the more you practice it, the easier it will become for you to actually look at it from a space of compassion and self-love, rather than, oh my God, there it is again, brace yourselves,
This is going to be a rough one.
It doesn't have to be.
Oh my goodness. I feel like I learned so much.
I know, and this time I learned stuff too. I mean, I've learned stuff before, but like I feel like this was more for, I don't know, me this time instead of you. Yeah, this one was speaking to me more than it was, I feel, for you. But I absolutely thank you for coming on. Seriously.
Yeah, I could tell he's like soaking it all in.
That's also healing. It's all integrating what you learn. That's really what it is.
Very cool.
Wow.
Nice.
Well, are there any last thoughts before we wrap this up?
For me, no. I feel complete.
I have so much to digest and process. I really want to work on the shadow work. I think that, like you said, like everybody could benefit from addressing those things that we push down inside of us and really bringing that forth to be whole and to accept ourselves. I think to truly love ourselves, we have to be able to accept all aspects of ourselves, including those not so happy sides.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I mean, it can be rough, but you're going to be fine. You will survive.
That's perfect right there. I was going to say, that's a good ending. You will survive.
You will survive. All right, Jonathan, you want to bring us home?
I do. Thank you, Eline, again, very much for coming on. I appreciate it. I know Ashley appreciates it.
So much.
And I hope this episode reaches who it needs to reach. So thank you again very much. And to all of our listeners, thank you for tuning into this episode of 3Haunted Podcast with your host. I'm John Thomas.
I am Ashley Lunar Goddess.
And if you have any questions, comments, or episode suggestions, please feel free to email us at 3hauntedpodcast@gmail.com. And if you haven't done so already, please like, follow, and subscribe to all of our social media. You don't want to miss one fantastic moment, because this wasn't crazy.
No, but it was amazing.
It was.
Until next time.
Yeah, I like to watch Ashley's face. Sometimes it's funny.
Because I don't have the best poker face. Okay.
Especially earlier.
I'm going to do my intro. And if I mess it up, I mess it up.